me see if I can, oh, here we go. I can expand this. Great. So yeah, just wondering how your week has been since we last met. And I'm looking up the homework assignments. Okay. I don't know if anyone has done the clarity of consciousness meditation again. We're going to do a different version of it today. And I was asking if you could try to do the meditation, like, this past week, just to see if you start to get a better sense of your mind a little bit. I know it's not easy to do these meditations, but also it was about, if you recall, could you identify your two big delusions that come up for you in your mind? And again, this is your own private practice. You don't need to say if you don't want, but that's helpful to start to go after your main delusions first. And about a third activity was to try to practice basic mindfulness. So as we are settling in, I just want to ask all of you, see if I can expand. Sometimes once I close this, I can't figure out how to open up. Come on. How to open up the window again, so I can't seem to see everybody. Let's see if I can do it this way. There we go. So I'm just curious, this past week, as we start to settle in, any recollection on any of those exercises? Any experiments you tried? And I'm also curious, here's another thing. I'm also curious, and I've been discussing this with some senior teachers and friends of mine that have been teaching for a long time, is they're finding that a lot of people are just showing up at the class and not really doing anything else, not doing much else. I think that's kind of a common thing with our distractions and our, okay, Kelly's in to get a full dose here. She was with us at the earlier program today. Welcome again. I'm teaching the same course for Paris this weekend, Paris Center. So a little bit kind of deeper level of this. Is people are very distracted, and it's a different level people are practicing. A lot of people are practicing. Now, one of my friends mentioned this, he's a longtime teacher. He was around Buddhism like much longer than me, and just saying, when we were practicing, we were doing this, and it's interesting. And I don't know, have any of you heard about the book about Lama Yeshe's life called Big Love? Have anybody heard about this book? No. Interesting. Okay.
Yes, Venerable Amy, I have it and I love it.
Who's that?
It's Mary. I'm on my cell phone because I'm at work and I
Oh,
can't
okay.
turn. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, yeah, no, I'm just curious. It's, wait, excuse me a minute. I'm going to show you. Okay. This is the second volume. There's 2 volumes. So it's a formidable work. I'm in the middle of the second volume. My personal take is it should be required reading for anyone working or volunteering at one of an NFPMT center. I've been so moved by this book. But again, there's a lot of people in the book I know, and my relationship with my teachers, but it's really extraordinary, the level. I will say the hippie generation, who were the ones that got a hold of Buddhism first when it catapulted out of Tibet. Honestly, if it was not for that generation, and younger people have a very negative view about hippies, but if it wasn't for hippies, there's a lot of their freedoms and things that they wouldn't have experienced as much, let alone music, alternative foods, alternative ways of living. But they were the ones that got a hold of Buddhism, started to meet the lamas, because they were an exploratory generation that traveled to other countries, especially Asia. As you know, the Beatles were doing it. All these other rock groups were, had their meditation person. And as a result of that, they met Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And the lamas met them because they had to exile Tibet because the communist Chinese invaded in the 50s. And the Tibetans were forced out, the ones that got out. So all I'm saying is it's really inspiring to read the dedication, the sacrifice these students made. It's staggering. It's not something we're doing today. It's not something a lot of people are doing today. So I'm just curious, in your personal practice, what I do find is helpful is we have a pattern of not really doing a lot of practice. Now, again, I don't know your lifestyle and I'm not raising any judgments at you, but it's for you, it's for all of us to look at what prevents us from practicing, right? Like what other habits are there that seem to take hold of me predominantly? And why, meditation it can be uncomfortable. It's slow going. We don't feel like we're doing it that well. So we're very quick to kind of run off to something else where we get some immediate gratification, right? So I don't know, am I communicating with you? Are you resonating with, or am I the only one? Okay, I'm getting some nods of, so I think it's your own personal thing in your practice of, if I do a certain practice and I actually feel good, I notice I feel good afterwards, what's going to get me to kind of maybe do that practice 2 more times this week instead of wait, just so that's your own evolution of what you want to look at, your own exploration, if you find that helpful. And I've discussed this with a lot of classes of, what is going to get me on the cushion or my chair, what prevents me from doing it? What are the excuses I make? Because one thing I found in the time I teach is the excuses now have gotten more and more sophisticated. They really have. Some people have really developed these really intricate reasons that, and they're kind of honest about it, but I'm really like, okay, and then they're not happy. So it's not like they're happy, but they're not happy and they go, why can't I do this and this? And so I wish that the Buddhists could do it for us because they would, but they can't. So just think about what little, tiny turn of that practice can I just turn it up a little bit that's realistic, that's possible, that I can keep it going a little bit. And I just find I generally feel better. So you can experiment. See how that goes, like that. Okay, I think we're here. Thank you so much for joining. And the name of the book, yes, thank you, is Big Love. Big Love. And again, it's 2 volumes. It is really the life story of Lama Yeshe, who is this person here. He is the founder. Now that looks like a Stern photo. The other volume has a different photo. I mean, they're all nice, but let me show you another photo. This is a very famous photo of Lama there's Lama Yeshe. And he's one of the founders of the FPMT, which is our overall organization, of which Thupten Norbeling is one of our centers. And he also, with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, his heart disciple, they basically created the FPMT, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche had to take over after Lama passed away in the 80s. And the book is all about Lama's life, and it's all about the development, the beginning and the development of the FPMT. So I've just found it very inspiring, where I wasn't there in the early days. I never met Lama Yeshe in person, but I definitely feel like he's one of my teachers after all the years, like that. So just think about, I found it very inspiring. I was so inspired after reading a lot of the book and retreat. I wrote to several people in the book, the old students that are friends of mine. I wrote them emails and thanked them for all that they sacrificed, all they did, the dedication, because of them, I'm able to be not only a nun now, but I'm able to be here and be able to teach, be able to have stepped into running centers. And that's the reason we are all here now, is because of them, because of their kindness, along with Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So I was really moved by that. And, again, you may resonate with it differently, coming in a different time, but Just wanted to share that just to pass it on. Okay, so let's talk about dealing with difficult emotions, coping with anxiety and depression. And the beginning is the best way I find to deal, again, is that motivation, the motivation. And we forget it so often. So you may have set up a motivation earlier today. Great. You may have gotten to one right, waking up in bed in the morning. Wonderful. You may have completely forgotten. Not to worry. We're here right now. And you can start any time of the day. Anytime you reflect, it's better to get it going earlier if you can, to train ourselves. And then if it lapses, we forget, anytime at all. So again, I know students who leave notes. I've told them to leave notes on the bathroom mirror, on the refrigerator, dashboard of your car, if you're driving to work or something, or next to the bed, like something that, and you put it into your words, whatever it means, that reminds you, oh, wait a minute, my mindset. What's my attitude right now? Let me try to put together a pretty good attitude for the day. Okay. So what we're all about in this tradition, as you know, is helping all living beings. It's all about serving all living beings, all, not just the people I like, okay? But the best way I can do it, to do it perfectly, you do it when you're enlightened, when you're a Buddha. Buddha simply means in Sanskrit, fully awakened being, okay? So that's the reason we want to be on this path, to become Buddhas. Now that may seem something very alien to you. I get it, something very far away. But what we can do is fold in a lot of practice exercises now that move us along that path. But I'd like to focus on, why am I doing a certain meditation? Why am I practicing kindness to myself or someone else? Why do I want to kind of be a member of Tupten Norbeling or show up at this class? Or all of those make little steps. But the real point is to benefit all living beings, all living beings. And when you benefit all living beings and your mind is turned that way, you're much happier. You're much happier. And you always have a job because there's always somebody to help. When we're focused on ourselves, which is the way of the world right now, like most things are about, what about me? You know, how's it going for me? This is what I want. I need this. I want you to do this. You know, we're just patterned to think that way. And that's normal human thinking. But we retrain a little bit. With Buddhism, we retrain, if you can, a little bit every day, a little bit every day. We retrain. And it takes time, so we need patience for ourselves in the process. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks, you know, like that. But you're going to notice all those little steps you take. One little 10-minute meditation, one little reflection in the grocery store. Oh, I wasn't thinking very kindly about that person. One little nice way when you're driving the next time and you let somebody in front of you. And what does it make you when you analyze? Are you, what, 30 seconds later? Oh, is that a problem? So when you really analyze, there's so many little kindnesses that are easy to do. Let's start with the easy ones. We don't really want to do anything hard. It's okay to start with the easy ones, but after you do it, you quickly feel like you're happy. You're like, well, that was good. You know, let the guy in. I like when people let me in. Okay. And when you notice you're about to say something rude to someone's really irritating you, supermarket, wherever you are, you're about to say something, but you refrain. You just catch yourself and you are able to remain silent for a moment. You know, good for you. Because it puts one little less noxious fume out there in the universe. Think about it. And it's just a small, sometimes being silent is a huge action. Being silent, refraining from a negative activity. Now, I might not be able to control my mind, right? The mind still, and people say to me, but my mind was negative. That's okay. You're stopping this negative speech. For a lot of us, that's a big one. You know, the speech is still activated. So when we're kids in the sandbox, when we're little kids, as you know, some kids take somebody's doll or truck, they hit somebody, they don't share, that's what we do as kids. We can't control the body. We can, yesterday, just spur of the moment, I'm at my parents' home and they've passed, but I have to, it's fortunately simple, but there is a lawn, small, fortunately, but the grass is not very nice. So every year I go out and I reseed, and I do it myself because it's cheaper. So yesterday was a nice weather and I ran out, I got 10 bags of soil and the seed, and I spent just a couple hours on one plot, one little thing that has not been growing because my neighbor's tree has it in the shade. So I went out and they've got 2 young kids and I'm very close with them. So, and I love the kids. So the kids were out after school and they came out, "What are you doing?" So we spent 2 hours, me and the kids, and me doing the work, the kids talking, but the kids were watching the process and I showed them what I'm doing. I'm like, first I'm preparing the soil, then I put the seed, and then they said, "Oh, wow, the seed's all blue." Yeah, the seed is blue. Sorry, not something you know about in Santa Fe, I know. So not a lot of grass out there, I think, but there is a little bit. Anyway, seed, I put the new seed. Then I put the soil on top and I mix it in. Then you tamp it down, and then I put my burlap on it. Okay, so I know this. The little boy is 6 years old, right? He loves, with his friends, when the burlap goes down, for some reason, they love running across it. And every time they run across it, I get no grass. Every footprint, there's no grass. So I showed him the entire process of what I'm doing, including watching me sweat. Okay. And I said, "So you see what I'm doing? You see all the work I'm doing?" And he was like, and I said, "So that means that," and I'm showing you this, and I'm showing you that I've got in the burlap, I use just twigs to hold down the burlap. So I said, "You see the twigs sticking up? If you run across it, you might hurt yourself. You might get caught in one of the twigs, but you know, it's really helpful because every time you run across it, I won't get grass every place you step." And he saw the whole thing. And so I said, "Okay, deal. Do you have a deal with me that you're not going to be running across it?" And he gave me a big nod. And I looked at his sister, 2 years older, and she's a real boss. And I said, "And so you're going to enforce that, correct?" And she went, "Oh, yes." And I said, "Perfect. Love you guys. Thank you. We'll see." Okay. But with kids, you can't control yourself, can't control bodily actions. As adults, we get good with the bodily actions. I mean, most of us, right? But then this opens, and then I'm not controlling that. So then you start to control this, the mouth, the speech, and then the mind is still activated. So we work to control that. So you see the process. So we have our adult maturation process, but we also have our dharma, our spiritual maturation process. And you have to be patient with yourself. So through this process, let's take a moment right now. I'd like you to just close your eyes. And we're going to go right in from our motivation to a different meditation on the clarity of consciousness. Different way to get at that clear state of the mind, which is one of our main antidotes to countering delusions and coping with anxiety and depression, is you have to start to understand your mind. So let's just sit comfortably, finding the comfortable space for your body. And let's check the posture. Just making sure your spine is as extended as possible. You can absolutely sit in a chair. And just try not to lean too heavily against the back of the chair. Imagine your sides being long. So there's that extension. Head is slightly tipped forward, not too far. And the eyes are lightly closed, focused towards the tip of the nose or the floor in the space in front of you. Have your feet, if you're in a chair, flat on the floor or on a cushion. or any cross-legged posture if you're seated on a cushion on the floor. And as you allow yourself to relax into this position, allow your respiration to deepen. You can use the respiration deepening. So allow the inhalation to bring in space to any tight places you notice in your body. And allow every exhalation to release that tension as much as possible. So that place of relaxation is a very essential beginning of your meditation. We always forget that step. From a relaxed, relatively relaxed body and mind, the meditations come more organically. And let's just consider a positive motivation right now for our time and all the events of the rest of your day. And just thinking about our ability to help others as much as possible, yet how limited we often are as humans. As a Buddha, we're unlimited. And there are many stories in Big Love of the help Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche have been able to give to people because of their realizations. So think how limited and how frustrated we are sometimes when someone, especially somebody we love, really needs help. And imagine if you knew and sincerely knew the best thing to think, say, or do for them at any given moment. And it was the right thing. It was the best thing. Extraordinary place to act from. That is the omniscient mind, the Buddha's mind. And that is something that you can achieve. Absolutely. So if you like that idea of benefiting all living beings, just feel free to include that in your motivation right now. And just think if there's some way through listening to this course, perhaps trying an exercise, you can direct yourself there quickly to that highly realized state. But the real purpose is so we can really truly help all living beings. So feel free to include that if you like in your motivation. And I'd like you to imagine right now, just imagine you are seated on the banks of a beautiful, crystal clear lake. And imagine as if you're seated looking out over the expanse, this beautiful, clear mountain lake. Just visualize as best as you can. And feeling, just getting a sense of the clarity, which can reflect the beautiful scenery around it. But that clarity is like your mind itself, that one aspect of the mind, clear. That's really one of the true aspects of your mind. So as you look out, imagine looking out across this lake. Focus as much as you can on that clarity aspect, merging your mind with that as best as you can. Feeling as if your mind and that crystal clear lake, that aspect of the lake, are one and the same. So if you notice during your day, your week, your month, at any time you feel off balance, constricted, not happy, the more you can remind yourself of this clear nature of your mind, the one aspect of your mind. Mind is clear and knowing. There's two main characteristics. But just focus now on the clarity so that my mind is not fear, it's not busyness or distraction, it's not discomfort, it's not anger, depression. It's clear. So the more you remind yourself of the nature of your mind, which is one of the general antidotes to delusion, and the way we remind ourselves is to do the meditations again and again. So we get a taste of the clear light nature of the mind. The only way to get a taste is to do the meditations again and again. And I know it's not easy. So again, as you're looking out, imagine that clear lake. And of course, our mind wanders off for a moment. And when our mind wanders off and a thought pops in, and we start thinking about the thought, and then that molts into another thought, and a story, and suddenly we're way out there, far from the lake. So when you become aware, gently, so there's no need for judgment about yourself. There's no need to think, I can't meditate. I'm a terrible meditator. No, it's just simply, I've lost the lake for a moment. Back to the lake. Then you just go back to the lake and you can start to see those thoughts and distractions as bubbles that rise deeply from the depths of the lake up to the surface where they appear. Just notice that process. There comes a thought process, and then the bubble pops up on the surface. And for a moment, it disturbs the surface, that clear surface of the lake. So let's reflect on the mundane more thoughts we have, just ordinary little thoughts that pop up all day long. And they're just small bubbles on the surface. And small ripples go out from those bubbles. And then they subside, and the bubble pops or disappears back into the surface of the lake. And the stillness continues. The clarity is there again. Just notice that process for a moment. Now we know sometimes we have a heavier thought in the mind. Severe anger, chronic depression or anxiety, overwhelming fear, intense desire and grasping, pride, jealousy, laziness. We get a sense, we understand these more major impositions on the clarity, right? So there's a bigger bubble that comes to the surface, right? And notice with the bigger bubble of the bigger delusion, notice the bigger ripples that stream out, disturbing that clear surface that is like your mind. Think about the disturbance in your mind of extreme anger, depression, anxiety, like that. But you're just observing now. There's no judgment necessary. There's no that you're doing it wrong, that you shouldn't be thinking these thoughts. Simply observe and get to know your mind. And think of the bigger ripples that go out from the lake, from that big bubble of disruption. Think of the impact it has on the shore, on perhaps any boats that are harbored on the lake, any people playing in the lake, any animals in the lake, any disturbance to the coastline. The bigger disturbances, the bigger bubbles and ripples from bigger delusion also seem to muddy up the clarity a bit. So when it's taken hold of my mind, I'm less able to be in touch with the clarity aspect. And I may even forget that that aspect even exists in my mind. So let all the ripples and bubbles subside and just return your awareness again, looking out at the clear, beautiful lake that is like your mind. And merging yourself with that clarity as much as possible. You can get a sense this is an aspect of my mind. As best as you can, stare at that. And slowly relax yourself and bring yourself back into the space where you're sitting. Just notice right now any thoughts, experiences that arise from this exploration. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. What happens to most of us is we're very familiar with a lot of delusions, right? And that becomes a habit. And so we start feeling that that's our mind, that's the nature of the mind. And it's simply not the truth. It's just that we have a heavy pattern of a certain delusion in the mind, which is why I mentioned to focus, get to know your mind and know what do you want to work on first? Is it fear? Is it attachment? Jealousy? Is it anger? You know, we're focused a lot here on depression and anxiety. That's fine. But you want to know personally yourself what's happening. And what happens is every time we have a moment of fear in the mind or depression, that creates another habit of that in the mind. So this isn't about getting down on yourself because you're chronically depressed or because you're subjected to a lot of fear or you have a lot of grasping. It's first, I have to get to know myself to know how I'm operating, what's operating in my mind. And then I start gently accepting these are simply habits slowly and starting to get to know my mind, meditate on its nature, and slowly apply antidotes, getting to know the antidotes for specific delusions and applying those. So, what we talked about last week, the first general um, antidote to general delusion in the mind is mindfulness and self-awareness that I had mentioned. Mindfulness and self-awareness, just as a quick refresher, you're just watching. Oh, here comes fear in the mind. What happens is we have fear arise in the mind, as an example, anger, jealousy, whatever it is, comes up in the mind. And then you get on a spiritual path or a Buddhist path, and sometimes not. But right away we start like, that's not okay. I shouldn't be thinking that. You know, I'm a Buddhist. I shouldn't have those thoughts. And there's the thought is there. Why don't we be more accepting? More accepting. It doesn't mean I'm going to continue I want more of these thoughts, but right now that's what's going on. That's the reality. So every time I resist it and then try to deny it, number one. So we don't suppress in Buddhism, but if I say, "Oh no, I'm not angry. I'm not angry," and you're angry, or every time you're angry and then you act out on it from there, or the fear, you crumble in on yourself, which creates more depression in the mind, right? Okay, that's creating more of it. So initially, we might be subjected to those patterns just because that's all we've known, but it's kind of taking that deep breath. And sometimes you get really stressed, just go back to your breath. There's a big delusion that topples you. Okay, we're not trained yet. That's okay. We're a human being. Be kind to yourself. When we say, we just had a motivation, all living beings, all sentient beings, we want to help. Well, all includes ourselves. All includes ourselves. So some kindness to myself is like, wow, there's this huge imbalance in my mind right now. I'm crashing and burning, let's say. We know those expressions, right? I'm just going to be there and observe it. It's very uncomfortable right now. You can have all those words, but here I am. Okay? Because practice and really becoming a Buddhist, so much is you and your mind. That's the story. That should be the title of the book. You and your mind. You and your mind. And you work with your mind and you become friends with your mind. So for me now, having long ago identified some main delusions, which all of the delusions are operating in us, okay? But some of us have stronger ones. So you want to go after those first. So now I notice certain patterns I've had, certain triggers, like people that may trigger the patterns or situations that may trigger the patterns. And when they come up, I'm so much more gentle with myself now of realizing. So those delusions are so much smaller now. They really don't dominate me. I'm kind of going, oh yeah, that's one of the things I do, but I don't do it to the extreme. I used to, and part of that process is really being gentle with yourself. One of the quotes I have on my wall from Lama Yeshe from years ago is, be wise. He says, treat yourself, your mind, sympathetically with loving kindness. If you are gentle with yourself, you will become gentle with others. That's where it starts. So I'm not just thinking about myself. I'm not just gentleness with myself. It's all about me. Gentleness for myself with the bigger motivation. So I'll ultimately be really gentle with all living beings. But if I'm riding myself, squeezing myself, really bashing myself, then that's how it's going to be with others. That's how it's going to be. So that beginning mindfulness, self-awareness, I'm just observing. Wow, there's fear. There's grasping. Well, there's a lot of grasping. Oh, there's more grasping. Right? Sometimes I watch it with humor, as I mentioned before. Humor is a wonderful one. If you have a sense of humor, if you like that. And so when I mentioned, watching my irritating mind, I rarely get to full blown anger anymore. It really doesn't happen, but I catch it at irritation. I catch it at frustration or annoyance. Those are all lesser degrees of anger. And I know that about my mind. So if I see a certain trigger that creates irritation in my mind, if it's related to a person that shows up, let's say, is I notice the bubble of irritation arise. There might be a few bubbles. They come up much smaller than anger, much smaller than anger. There's no hatred there, just boom. And I'll watch it. And then that little voice in the back of my head with humor will say, Amy, there's the person in front of me. Smile on my face. Do not open your mouth right now, please. Okay. So I can still stay there present with a smile on my face, a genuine smile on my face with the person, because I'm introducing openness and curiosity as well. I just talked about this in the other class too. Openness and curiosity. Okay. And this is really a helpful antidote moving on from mindfulness or self-awareness. I'm adding in openness and curiosity. And the reason is curiosity is a huge one for me. Now, what happens is we have a delusion arise, and then your judgments start. I shouldn't be thinking that, oh, I'm a lousy Buddhist, I'm a terrible nun, I shouldn't have this, I shouldn't do that. But there it is in your mind. Okay, so all those other judgments are not really helping. Mindfulness and self-awareness, I can go, wow, so there's irritation. Okay, well, there it is. I have a lot of that in my mind. Or there's fear. Oh, there's grasping. Yeah. Okay, well, there's that lovely red jacket that I'm telling myself I need. And you can just watch with a little, okay, but somebody's upsetting you, let's say. Somebody's upsetting you. You're driving and somebody's right behind you. It's night. They have their high beams on. You're in the grocery store checking out and somebody's a little too close to you without a mask on or something. Or how, you just see, you hear people's conversations or something disagreeable arises, okay? So my curiosity is now, and I put this in now, this is what works in my mind now. I've practiced this a lot, so the curiosity comes up now right away. The curiosity is, why is this disturbing my mind? Like instead of the judgment on me, or instead of externally, oh, I can't stand that person. That's what our world teaches us. Get away from me, get them away from me. They're bad. We're just talking about labels in the other class, meaning you just see somebody with a certain t-shirt on, what their sign on their t-shirt, what says on their hat, what political button they're wearing. Last year especially, people were wearing their, their ideas, their views. So you see a bumper sticker, you see a type of car somebody drives, and you have a whole sweeping judgment about them. You don't even know them. So openness is I'm going to leave myself open that there could be an aspect of that person that I don't know right now, that I'm not seeing. Why am I not seeing? I have limited consciousness. You think you're seeing the whole picture? Well, we believe we are. And our society dictates that we are, that our view is right. Everything you see is exactly the way it is. That's wrong. That's wrong thinking. Buddhism says, no, you're not seeing the whole picture until you have a direct perception of emptiness, the nature of reality. We've got a limited view as humans. I'm not saying we're bad. I'm just saying I acknowledge I'm realistic. Haven't you had times where you get a story going about somebody and you're very invested? It's true. That person's like that. They're always like that. They do that. And then you find out why they did that thing. And you're completely wrong. You totally got the story wrong. But you act and respond based on your story. Right? So we do this all the time. It's very normal. But the more you understand it, it gives me openness about the person, that there may be aspects about them I'm not seeing right now. And there may be aspects about them that I really enjoy and like. Okay. So what's really helpful when we create an enemy and when we have a trigger that we don't like, and a person especially, okay, it's essential that you move in and get a closer look. And I mean that metaphorically. Now you may actually need to, get closer to them and find out who they are if you have an opportunity safely to do that. Right? But that's not our culture in the States. It's fractious, it's separated, it's making boxes, and you put people into boxes so that you're going to be safer, but we're not safer at all. All it does is it puts our heart, mind experience in a box, in a constricted place. And you're the one you're holding prisoner because of those constricted boxes. And I gave an example in the other class. I've given this example before. My next door neighbor, who's in his 80s, I think he's like 86 now, who's lived next door to us for almost 50 years, he and his family. And he's living now with his youngest son, daughter-in-law, and their 2 young kids. And they're a lovely family. Okay. But this man, the father, is what I might label old school. I know kind of where he came from, what part of Philadelphia he came from, that kind of, and he's moved out here. And I have heard him and I've been engaged with him when he is saying some really racist things. So I can call him a racist. That's easy, right? But he has so many other dimensions to him. So because I've moved in close and I know more about him, I know he's a great dad. I know he's a great grandfather. He's a great neighbor. He was the one before, when he was a bit younger, he used to drive me to the local train so I could go and take the train and teach in New York. He was my ride. He always said to me, anytime, Amy, anytime you need a ride, let me know. It was a wonderful thing. And he would kiss me goodbye. He'd help me with my bag out of the car, give me a kiss on the cheek, like my surrogate dad. That's what my dad would do. So when my dad couldn't do it anymore, he was the one who would give me a ride. Really kind, super kind. Like that. He would take mail in for me. He would take the newspaper in. He would look out for the house when I go away. He cares about me. He asked me, just the other day I saw him. He's like, how are you doing? Are you teaching? Are you working? Are you okay to support? Like, that's my neighbor. So he's not just racist. Yes, he has some strong views that I might not agree with, right? But he's multidimensional as all of us. So if I want to box him into the racist box, I'm never going to speak to him. I may not be open to his son and daughter-in-law and kids whom I really, really like. And they have very different views than him. And they all live in the same house. So I hear their stories about him, like so I see, but this is who people are. We're more than just one thing. We're more than just the slogan on the t-shirt. But we've seen some people acting out like that, and it can be disturbing. But people have many different facets about them. So if I want to be open to that, it's much more gentle from my experience, for one. I am happier, not just seeing my neighbor's a racist. I see him as all these other things. So what it does is, I don't know how it affects him, but my mind's more peaceful. That's the ripple that goes out from my mind, is when I see them outside and all that, and I see them, and it's all very joyous for us. Hi, he goes, hi, Amy. The son says, hey, how you doing? And we help each other all the time. That's what makes the world go around more harmoniously. That's what we have to do, is we reach into our mind, unlock the box, keep it open as much as you can. Now, again, you have to protect yourself, of course. You want to protect yourself. You want to be, you want to figure out, who do you know? And if you don't know somebody, they're a stranger, you're in the wrong part of town at the wrong time and things. There's certain things I may be moving back to my car quickly to get in my car if I feel like, well, the sun's going down, I'm in the wrong neighborhood in Philadelphia, And some people have been really blatant at, in parts of Philadelphia, in parts of big cities, as you know. I remember years ago, I worked on politics and I got all over Philadelphia. I went and got all these lawn signs, stoop signs. I put all these people, I went all over Philadelphia, every neighborhood, to get these people field operation, to get them invested in our candidate. And then I delivered all these signs to them with a car lent to me by my father that was stalling constantly, was a wreck, was just a mess. So the car broke down, 1:30 in the afternoon. And I'm in the middle of a mixed neighborhood. So I have the African-American guys on one side of the car helping me. The Puerto Rican guys on the other side come out. And I don't know where I stand with this. Like, I don't know if they get along. I don't know what, but I just kind of was like, okay, the car is broken. I can't do anything. And this is before cell phones. So I just tried to remain, it seemed like everything was going well. One of the guys, like, what could I do? He goes, hey, listen, let me open the hood. We did it. He got the car started. And everybody was happy. Everybody got along. We were, fortunately, some sort of protection, great. Doesn't mean these people are bad. It's just I didn't know the neighborhood, not familiar with the neighborhood. So, and the other thing I find is it's not just African American, Puerto Rican neighborhood, but sometimes if I'm in an affluent neighborhood, the challenge I have is nobody talks to anybody. Nobody knows their neighbors. No, they're very, it's like private property. Don't go in, what do they call the police on you first. If you're in the wrong, it doesn't matter what color you are. So that's not appealing as well. And anyway, I came in, everybody was happy, it was great, the guys were great. And then one of them jokingly says to me, your car will be okay, but you just can't turn it off. Like you just, wherever you're gonna go, you need to leave the car running. And which was true. Like I couldn't shut it off. Every time I shut it off, couldn't get it started. But the areas I was going, I couldn't leave the car running with the keys in it. There wasn't any automatic keys where you can lock it and be outside and have your other key. Cars weren't like that in those days. This was an Olds 98, the longest assembly car line ever made in the States. Slept 12 comfortably, okay? You get the idea. So I couldn't leave it running. The car wouldn't be there when I come back. But anyway, we had a big joke about it and they were wonderful. And so I went along and now it's 7:30 at night. And I'm in an area that I'm lost now. I can't find the street and the address I had, I'm lost. There's a woman sitting on her stoop. And all I know is I went around the corner and I saw these two cross street signs, Philadelphia. I'm in a very urban area and I see the street signs and somehow it's familiar to me. I was like, I know those street signs. Like, why do I know those streets? And then I realized that I know those streets because they were just in the news the week before. I mean, this is long ago, just in the news the week before as having the highest murder rate area in the city. So I'm kind of now like little on edge. The sun is setting and I'm thinking, I'm not sure I should be in this neighborhood right now. Nobody looks like me in the neighborhood, but I see this woman on her stoop and I just said to her, I yell out the window, excuse me, can you tell me where this address, this block of this street is? Because I'm on the street, but there's no addresses of this number. And she's adorable. And she leans into me, God bless. And she leans in and she says, honey, she goes, you're lost right now. This kind of dialect of, and she says, and you don't want to be around here right now. Like she's basically saying, you're the wrong color. You need to get out of town. And that block is not, I don't know where it is. It's not around here. Because Philadelphia has some confusing streets. And so again, how do we want to respond? Because we meet people of all different ilks and people of color are really struggling right now. And, and it was helpful for me to know I'm not welcome really in this neighborhood as a white girl. That actually helped me to understand how a lot of people of color feel all the time. To have those little bits of information for me, the very few times I've experienced it, which I have experienced it sometimes, just gives me a tiny little keyhole in to what other friends of mine experience all of the time. So it keeps you open that we are interbeings, we're all interconnected. And for me to have that nice interaction with the woman on her stoop, it was very pleasant. I thanked her very much. And with the guys helping fix my car, but sometimes you're protected, but it gives me curiosity when I tighten up and I'm fearful and I'm judging. Okay, what cloud has crossed my horizon that is disturbing my mind? Let me look in myself, which makes you a Buddhist, being a Buddhist being an inner, INNER being. That's what really makes you a Buddhist. It's not out there. It's what is my mind telling me right now? Why is my mind disturbed right now in the face of this person? Why is this person that's really irritating me? What's going on in my mind? Why are they irritating me? Oh, they're kind of a mirror of myself. Or, I say those things as well. Or, well, I'm kind of interpreting that the person may have voted for this person for president. Or I'm interpreting that it's interesting. I wonder why that person feels they don't need to wear a mask, And then sometimes I notice, even when I'm walking in a park, and I drop my mask a few times because it's hard to breathe. I get it. And I know I have heard some people say, well, I've got asthma and sometimes I just can't breathe. Yeah, and some masks are really hot and constrictive. Like, I understand a little bit. I don't just say, well, he doesn't have a mask, he's a jerk. Like, but I just watch the response in my mind rather before I'm going to launch a missile out there. That's how we do the work to keep the mind more balanced. So please experiment this week with openness and curiosity. What's it telling you? That's how you get to know your mind more. And look at situations where you're negatively judging somebody, and maybe you're overly positively judging somebody, not still saying, and move in a little closer. Is there somebody you're idolizing that maybe isn't the best person, that might be manipulating you? Is there somebody you're negatively judging that's harming, and you just see them in one guise? Move in close. Are there other aspects of them you're not allowing yourself to see? Can be really, really helpful, like that. Oh my goodness, it's 5:00. How did that happen? I'm so sorry, I was tangents on my stories. Please, are there any questions? Any questions right now? Kelly, question? And Brian.
I don't know who should go first. I don't know. Should I go first?
Yeah, Kelly, go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering, I had found you on your YouTube channel last night, and you had a video uploaded, I think from this one, and you had told, I guess, like a story about how fear drives like if you're afraid you're going to hit someone and you get angry and you give the finger or something, the underlying emotion to the anger was fear. And then you said that there's actually something under the fear, but then you left it open for everyone to contemplate. And then you said you would let them. So I don't know if I'm in that course, but I'm like, what's under the fear? What's under the fear?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if this is that
I
same course.
I did have a note about that. Yes, thank you. I was
Okay.
mentioning that anger is a bodyguard for fear and sadness. Just notice your mind. Anger is a bodyguard. Okay, but then you've got fear and maybe sadness. Any ideas? Anybody have a look at that? What's underneath that? There's something underneath that as well. Any ideas? Is it Sheil Bhagwan Nidin? I don't know what your name is, but you have a hand raised for a question or for a response?
Yes. Oh, for a question. Sorry.
Okay, well, we're going to come to you after Brian. Absolutely. Look, anybody, what do you think's underneath when you're afraid? When you're afraid, what's going on for you? Any ideas what you think is driving the fear? What could be driving the fear? Because it's easy to kind of see underneath anger when you slam your brakes on and you get angry at the other car, but a lot of it is driven because you're afraid you're going to have an accident and you feel that adrenaline rush okay, we get it, but any ideas what you think is under fear? Should I give you a hint? The first letter begins with C. What do you think? What are you afraid of losing? Yeah, Kim. I've become a lip reader.
You'll have to unmute yourself.
Control.
Control. We're afraid we're losing control. Think about it.
Yes.
We're a culture, and the Westerners, we like to control things, but we don't have any control of our mind, for God's sake. So we try to control other things. We try to control other people. We haven't even begun to control our responses and our attitudes, but we're going to exert control over everything else. A lot of people are like that. And the fear of losing control and not having control. Right now, the pandemic, my goodness, what do you have control over? Maybe what you eat a little bit? That's pretty, and we're the lucky ones. But people say to me, I want to know when it's going to be over. Well, good luck with that. It may never be over. May never be over. But but people want to know, okay, we have these vaccines, but now there's things that people that were vaccinated are spreading COVID. Like they're protected, but they're spreading it because they're carriers. They don't know about the vaccines. There's so much they don't know. You know, I said to my brother with the messenger RNA, 2 of the vaccines in the States are messenger RNA. They don't have any long-term studies of these. So I said to my brother, my whole family, we all got the same vaccine. I get my second one on Monday, but we all got the same one. So I said to him, okay, at least if we go down, we all go down together, right? And I said, but let me know, I said to him, if you suddenly see me growing an arm out of my head. Like, we just don't know. So let go the not knowing and just you can still take care of your mind, because Buddhism believes the mind is going to go on in its most subtle experience. It goes on, and you're going to have all these other experiences. And maybe we go to a better world system. How about that? But we never think about a world system where the word war doesn't even exist. Okay? It's just peace and tranquility and an ability to practice Dharma. So thank you, Kelly. So think about control. Think about that this week. What are you trying to control? What can you control? There's one thing you can control. What's that? Your mind.
Yourself.
Your
Thoughts.
mind. And be careful about pointing here, Brian, because it's not the brain. In Tibetan Buddhism, the mind's separate from the brain, and the mind in its most subtle experience is actually located at the heart center in its most subtle form. It's a whole different teaching, but great, you got it, Brian. It's the mind. It's the mind, like that. Absolutely. Brian, you had a question, please. If we just have a couple more minutes, please.
Yes, just very quickly. I have been trying to contact you through your website, but the messages are not going through. It keeps, the little bubble keeps turning. Do you have an email, or is there another way to contact you
Yes,
directly? If that's
absolutely.
okay.
I'm so sorry. Here's my email. info@amymiller.com.
Perfect. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much. Thank you.
And for those of you, again, I am still making satsas, the Buddha images. And Barbara, yours is about to go out, and I've got some other ones that are going out. Let me know if you want any of the, I'll pack up a box for you, and I just ask people to pay the shipping. So they're still happening for now, right now. Yes, so Brian, please feel free to email. Thank you. And is it Sheil? I'm sorry, what is your name? Sheil Bhagwan Nidin?
It's Sheil Bagwandon.
Sheil, great. Okay, Sheil, please, you have a question.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I finally get to meet you, because I see you through YouTube and I've never really known how to connect with you, like where one would reach you. And it just kind of accidentally, I found the meetup site, and here we are. So I'm so happy that I could talk with you. I guess my question is that, like, I get triggered a lot when, like, other family members, want to give me advice, right? And it's like, and it's always about like marriage, right? And I get so triggered by that. It's because it's like, I don't understand why they have to kind of give me advice, and then it creates an anxiety within me. So how do I sort of, I mean, I can't abandon all my family, right? But
no, don't abandon your family.
But how do I not allow that to become an anxiety, and then it spirals into like fear? Oh yeah, I better get married and blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
So can I just ask personally your cultural background?
Indian.
Indian, okay. So it's very common for an Indian family with a young Indian woman in the family. That's part of the culture, okay? And I'll give an example. So I was raised in a Jewish background. And again, growing up, the culture was pushing that I would marry and have children. And that's a very big thing in Jewish culture, as well as other cultures, right? But that was an important value for my family. And that's what everybody did in that kind of culture where I was living. It was just kind of when you'd get married, when you'd have children, and you didn't want to move too far from your parents, because the family is a very big thing, as it is with Italian families and some Irish families I know, and Indian families, and many families have that, whether you're from those cultures or not. But so for some reason, I wasn't really driven that way when I was younger. And I was always kind of thinking, how long can I wait to have a child? Like I just wasn't, I love kids. I absolutely love kids and I'm really good with kids. It's not that I don't like kids, but I didn't think I wanted to have any. Now that's not what you do if you're from my background, and not to get married. And then if you don't get married, there's kind of like, what's wrong with her? And is she a lesbian? Like there was, now lesbians marry, so that's really not an issue, but there's just, you're different. You're different. And then I went off to travel and then I met the Dharma. So it's been
Kind of
really,
like me, traveled and met the Dharma.
that's what happened. So again, what I would do is you never give up your family. But what I would do is I accepted that this was my mom's story. This was what my mom's life was about. So I couldn't change her to make her somebody else. That just wasn't my mother. And over time, as I got older, I came to accept that that was part of her job, was to marry her children off to what she considered the right people, and that there'd be grandchildren. And fortunately for me, my sister and brother did that and had grandchildren for her. And it was really wonderful. And she was really involved with them and happy. But the other thing that my parents saw is my brother and sister had complications in their relationships. And it wasn't simple. And when I would come and visit by myself, I used to live in California. When I would come and visit them in Philadelphia, I just came in, it was just me. It was easy. They didn't have to entertain someone else. They didn't have to make special bed and do this. And he's not going to want to do that. And she doesn't want to do that. And it was somewhat simple. And the other thing that impresses your family most is your parents really want you to be happy. So over time, when I chose a different path and it became clear I was not going to get married and have children, I was enough established in my life doing and running centers and doing really, I felt beneficial things that made me happy. And I had a big community. And fortunately, my family was able to come and visit the centers and the communities where I was. And they liked everybody and they saw that it was safe. It was good. And then another wonderful thing that happened is His Holiness the Dalai Lama won the Nobel Peace Prize. So what happened is early on in my Dharma journey, this was very early for me, but this leader that I was going to teachings with and going to programs was a bit of a driving force for me. The Dalai Lama wins the Nobel Peace Prize, which is this very accredited prize that is generally accepted in the world. So they could suddenly see that at least what I'm doing, it's not kind of a cult figure of somebody that's asking me to never talk to my family and give them all my money and whatever. I mean, not that I've ever had much money, but you get the idea. So they came to see this was a good thing I was associated with. And they, over the years, met many teachers. They could see they were good people. And my life was very interesting. And I'm very fulfilled. So I think ultimately, it's important to be true to yourself, provided you're on a positive path that lends deep contentment to you. And your parents will see that that makes you happy. But again, be gentle with them and accepting. And, there were times my mother would say, oh, can you go out with this guy? And sometimes I would just date them just to kind of throw her a bone. I'd come in and visit before I was a nun. And there were some people I thought, well, let me try this for my mom because she kind of, and I try it. And sometimes I hoped it would work so it would be easier to lead a conventional life. But it didn't work out. And she could see that, and I'd explain to her, I'd say, well, he's really arrogant. This is what he's interested in, or he, so then she'd kind of hear, the different people. And over time, I think she really, later in life, some of the letters I found of hers or cards she sent me, she was really very pleased with the path. She was happy that I found a path that I was really happy. So I that's the best answer I can give. It's not easy at times. It's not easy,
Thank you.
especially traditional families. And just yesterday was very cute. A friend of mine from high school here where I live suddenly sends me a text and he says, I have regards for you from Dr. So-and-so, this doctor that he goes to, his doctor. And this is a doctor that's an old family friend of ours who went to university with my brother. And I've known him for years. And jokingly, I said to my friend, oh, I was supposed to marry him. Yeah, that's the there's the guy was supposed, we had this big laugh about it of that my mom really, loved this person and what, but again, you can't push yourself into into something so constrictive that you're not going to be, and they know, and your parents will know if you're not happy and you do what they say and you're not happy. They don't really want that for you. So good luck with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyway, let's end there, and thank you for your questions. I'd like to dedicate whatever is positive here, whatever has been, whatever merit, whatever has been helpful for your mind, can we roll it into our practices that will help us quickly fully wake up and become Buddhas so we can be of the most benefit to all living beings. I'd really love you to try, you've got the 2 meditations right now, which is the spacious sky, merging yourself with that clear blue sky that's like your mind, or the clear mountain lake that is like your mind, and just notice the bubbles, the ripples, the disturbing thoughts that arise. Don't get so attached following the thoughts. Let them quickly recede back in and stay more with staring at that space of consciousness. There's a space of awareness there in the clarity that's your mind. Focus on that instead. Think about, where does a thought come from? Okay. Think about your openness. Like when you see a negative aspect of someone and you're judging, whether you see them on your computer, on the news, whether they're near you in the store or something, and notice the sweeping judgment that might come out. See if you can just observe it without feeling bad about yourself. Like, I shouldn't have said that. My mind is crap. No, I'm just noticing. Sometimes they escape those judgments, but then see if you can take another perspective. Curiosity, number 1, about your mind, and curiosity about the other person. Are there other aspects there I'm not seeing? Like, do I just label them the one thing like that? There's so many different aspects of people. So think about that. See if you can move in close, okay, in a safe way, but just meaning, what I mean is metaphorically, like try to find out something. You have something in common with that person, and you have many things in common with them. But sometimes we're not able to see that. I'd also like to dedicate to all those that have COVID to be released and healed immediately. And may this pandemic finish, subside on our planet for everyone. And may everybody find health and well-being for all beings everywhere, and for the long lives of our precious teachers, and for Tupten Norbeling for great success. Thank you so much. And if you're interested, one last thing is, some people want to know how to meditate, and a couple centers recently have asked me to do some meditation series. The first one is a weekend for Milarepa Center. It's literally Friday night. This is East Coast, Vermont. So anytime, when you're in the States, but it's a Friday night, Saturday and Sunday, just Saturday. It's 3 sessions, 2 sessions Saturday. It's all on my website. It's the middle of April, so it's next weekend. And it's, people want to know, how do I meditate on the Lam Rim and how do I set up a retreat? That's what we're going to be doing. So many people ask me that, and they ask the center, could you host this? If you really want to know, we'll be doing some analytical meditations on the Lam Rim in that retreat. And then the New York centers asked me to lead Meditation 101. So the very fundamentals of meditation. How do you get it going? How do I set up my practice? And we're going to do meditations together like that, which will include the clarity of consciousness and other meditations. And that's going to be on Friday evenings. So that might not be the great time for you. Friday evenings, I think it's in June, and one Friday in July after July 4th weekend. So you can certainly join that, and if you'd like that. So those are a few things. You will find those soon on my website are being added. And the website is, I'll just put it right here, amymiller.com. And you can find a lot of other things there in addition to the YouTube button. And if you want to know what I'm doing, I don't send messages out. So I think my assistant we put stuff on Facebook and Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, then I think we list most of the stuff there. We try to give some heads up like that, if that's helpful. And all those buttons you can find on the website. Thank you, my dears. Lovely to see all of you. I wish you a wonderful weekend. And you can still jump into this Paris weekend. It's going on Saturday and Sunday, if you'd like. And it's kind of the same course, but, you know, 4 more sessions like that, of a little bit longer sessions. Or I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you so
Thank you.